Hey, what's up guys? Today I get to do one of those videos that I get a lot of requests for. I always love it when that happens. Today we're going to cover how to do gloss designs and patterns on a matte finish. So you get both the matte and the gloss. So for the purpose of promoting accessibility so that everybody can kind of do it, I'm going to do this whole thing with spray cans. It's really not that difficult. What I've got here is a matte finish stratocaster that I painted. If you're looking for how to do a matte finish with spray cans, I've already covered that in a video. So I'll put a card in this video so you can go check it out and have a look at that. It's really straightforward, but a lot of you are trying to put gloss patterns and stuff on something that's already painted kind of a matte black. So I'm starting with the matte black and we're gonna go ahead and put the pattern on there. I'm gonna keep the patterning pretty straightforward on this one. I'm just gonna do some stripes. We're gonna do some gloss stripes through this thing because honestly, I've had a lot of people ask me specifically about the gloss stripes, but if you want to apply this to something a little more complicated, that's pretty straightforward too. You can do a Zach Wilde bullseye or a gloss skull or a wing or whatever you want really. What you would do is just tape off that pattern so you can cover the whole surface and trace on there what you want and cut it out using a sharp razor blade, and just be careful not to cut into the surface. But for the purpose of this video, just to show kind of how this works, I'm going to simply tape off some stripes. So got my nice wide painter's tape here. This is a fairly fresh coat of the matte finish, so I'm gonna use the green stuff because it's pretty gentle. And we're gonna tape off, let's go gloss at the top. We're gonna tape this off a couple stripes to keep the matte. So keep in mind whatever you tape is gonna stay the color or finish that you had on there before you put the tape there. Let's keep those gloss stripes down in this area a little bit thinner. So obviously this is going to look a little strange because of the paint job that I've got on here. But there we go. Again, my matte is done completely with matte black and this matte clear coat. And now I'm getting ready to paint with my gloss clear on these stripes. So what I'm going to do first, just to make sure that it sticks, is I'm going to take some gray Scotch Brite. You can also use 600 or 800 grit paper, sandpaper, and I'm just going to scuff that area up so that I know that that clear coat is going to stick to it properly. All right, the matte finish, the clear might stick to that. Really, it's the gloss that causes problems, but I'm trying to be safe. So I'm going to do that, and you should then proceed to clean it with some wax and grease remover. I'm being kind of lazy and using a freshly washed hand, but clean it with something like Windex, wax and grease remover, lighter fluid, something like that. Something that's not a strong solvent because you don't want it to eat into the paint, but you do want it to get all that dust off there, as well as any wax or grease that gets on there from your hands or anything like that. All right, so now it's time to spray. Really, that's kind of all there is to it. Now, typically with a gloss, you'd go back and polish it after to make sure that it's a nice mirror finish. And you can do that in this case, but you have to be careful. You have to leave it masked because if you polish your matte finish, you're gonna gloss it up. So what you wanna do ideally, because they are smaller areas, is avoid having to polish it, okay? So I'm just going to go in and we're going to do as few coats as possible because we don't want to build up a ridge of paint against the tape. If we can get this done in one coat and get a nice gloss, then that's awesome. And we're also going to obviously try and keep it nice and smooth so that we don't have to go on and polish it. There should be a nice even surface from your previous clear coat. So hopefully you can get this done in like one coat, maybe 2 light coats. Let's go ahead and give it a try. I'll also wear a mask. I mean, I'm making a video. I wear a mask when I do this myself, but for the purposes of narrating, I'm not. So do as I say, not as I do. All right, so you paint in nice even strokes across the surface that you're trying to cover. Don't do swirly stuff. Stop painting as you stop the can, stop the flow of paint so that you don't end up with buildup. If you're looking for information on how to get an even coat of paint with spray cans, I do have a video on that. I recommend you check that out because it is a useful skill to have for this stuff. All right, so I'm gonna let this sit and dry now. I'm gonna hope that the paint kind of levels itself off a little bit. If you're looking to make this a little easier on yourself, I've got this stood up so that it's easier for you to see. But if you paint it horizontally, you then have the opportunity to flow a little bit more paint on there and not have to worry so much about runs. And that also lets it level off. So even if you're not painting it horizontally, if you can then let it dry horizontally, you're kind of putting yourself in a better position to have that paint level off as it dries. Unfortunately, the spray can paint doesn't do that very much because it dries so quickly, but it's still good if you can have the opportunity to do that. Now, I've done many polishing tutorials. If you do have to polish this, leave the tape on, scuff it up, sand it flat to as high a grit as you can, and then go in and carefully polish it the same way you normally would. I don't think it's a good idea to go in with the rotary polisher unless you're very comfortable with it, because you can rip the tape up with that and end up polishing underneath it, and then you'll screw up part of your matte finish. I'm not going to do the polishing on this because my gloss actually looks pretty decent, and because I really hope that you guys can avoid having to go through that step if at all possible. But if you do need to do the polishing step, just follow one of my polishing tutorials and understand that you do need to avoid hitting the tape and that you probably don't want to use the rotary polisher. You can go in with a lint-free cloth or a foam buffing pad with your hands. This has had about 10 minutes to dry at this point, so it's not 100% dry, but I'll explain to you why I'm peeling this now. You can, of course, wait until your clear is fully dried to peel it, and that is kind of the safe option as far as not having to worry about fingerprinting it and stuff like that. However, as the clear dries, it can form a film it does form a film, in fact, and it can form that film over the tape. So between your cleared area and the tape, and then as you peel the tape, you can conceivably have issues where you're peeling up your clear coat as well. If you're able to peel it carefully while it's still drying, while it's still a little soft, you don't really run into that issue as much. Now, if you are doing it after it's dry completely, there are two options here to alleviate that. First of all, you can trace it with a razor blade, and that should solve the problem completely if you do it properly. Or, in order to lessen the risk, you can pull back almost completely perpendicular to your finish. I chose a bad piece of tape to do this because it's only taped to those small areas up there, but here's a better example. So pull back almost against the guitar again, and that should help you have a better chance at getting a nice clean line. So that's a good option if the if the paint is completely dry. Now when you're peeling it kind of wet, like I am, doing that just kind of increases your risk of rubbing the tape against the wet paint. So maybe don't do that. But, like I said, that is an option if you let the paint dry completely. Now, I got my one coat on there. Like I said, it's been about 10 minutes. So it's not wet. It's just kind of still soft. But let's, without touching the gloss, let's show you what we ended up with here. See? So there you go. You got a pattern in gloss and matte, and you can make this any pattern you want as long as you mask it off properly, and you shouldn't really have much trouble. It should come out pretty much just like this without having to polish it. If you do have to polish it, well, it should actually look even better when you're done, but you have to be very careful. You've probably heard enough of me saying that, so there it is, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is how you do it, or this is how I do it at least. You can do this in reverse as well. You can start with a gloss finish, tape it off, scuff, and spray your matte instead, and then you definitely won't have to polish, but most people don't do that. For the most part, my questions that I get are, how do I add gloss patterning to my matte finish? So that's it. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you don't mind sharing it, that would actually be awesome, because I don't really know if the title to this is going to be, easy to find for people. And like I said, there have been a lot of questions about this. But as always, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.